engineering, the classical definition of engineering really is the harnessing of the resources of nature for the benefit of mankind in a safe and sustainable manner. There are many other definitions, but if you just look at that simple definition, it brings into focus what we have just been talking about. What is the role of us engineers in terms of bringing the developments, in terms of bringing the infrastructure, providing for the housing, bringing down the forest, and so on and so forth. But that definition answers you, in my opinion. If we are looking ourselves at engineers, then we must recognize ours is a calling to utilize the principles of sciences for purposes of developing humanity in a safe and sustainable manner. When I say safe, I mean you can't actually determine the performance of the product that you're putting across for the humanity to use. It's not trial and error. You can, to a particular degree, and with a degree of confidence, say that whatever I'm putting across is going to work, and it's going to work in a particular manner. And so, having said that, then I want to give a presentation. I think Professor Sitati should be part of the people in London. Asked me to do a presentation on the engineering challenges, but he didn't have the opportunities part. That's mine. Engineering challenges in a dynamic Kenyan landscape from a regulator's point of view. I did say that we need to have opportunities because us as engineers, our calling is to help society surmount the challenges. So we don't see these challenges as a stumbling block to development. Rather, we see an opportunity for ourselves to bring change to humanity. So if you agree with me, then we can talk about challenges going alongside opportunities. And what I want to talk about in the few minutes that I have, I want to give you a little bit about the Engineers Board of Kenya, about engineering in Kenya, some historical data about that, about the opportunities that are there. When you talk about engineering manpower needs, do we really need engineers in the next 30 years? Do we need engineers in the next 50 years? And if we need them, where are we in terms of preparing ourselves to get them on board? And what are the opportunities that are there in the future? I'll start with the Engineers Board of Kenya, a brief introduction about the board. You may well be aware of this, that this is a statutory body established by the Engineers Act 2011. It has a history. It is a successor to the Engineers Registration Board. I think those of us who have been there are more aware of ERB rather than EBK, Engineers Registration Board. And the term itself, Engineers Registration Board, basically says that that board was supposed to mainly register. Okay? Not a lot more in terms of looking forward, providing leadership and how the profession would grow and so on and so forth. And the main purpose of the enactment of the new act was to empower the board to address emerging challenges and conform to engineering practices. In other words, as time went by, there was a realization that things were changing, and the things keep on changing. As a matter of fact, we all know that the only constant thing is change. It's the only constant thing. Things will keep on changing. So you have to keep on reviewing the context, the environment within which you're operating. And government saw that there was a need for purposes of helping the country move forward to look at the whole spectrum of engineering practice and see what can be done to inject some proactivity in the engineering profession. And so the Act provides the mandate of the board. We carried on with the mandate of registering engineers, but now a little bit more expansion on the regulation of engineering professional services, how they are to be conducted. As you remember, I said about issues of safety, very important. setting engineering standards, especially in line with global best practices, and oversee the development and general practice of engineering. We are a board that is all-encompassing in terms of our stakeholder representation. At the top level of the board, directors, we have representations from the various principal secretaries, infrastructure, education, that is higher education, national treasury. We also have representation from the universities, a very key component of our operations, representation from state corporations to give public sector perspectives, from private sector, and as well from the fraternity that takes care of the welfare of engineers in the country, that is the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. I want to take a few minutes to take us back on engineering in the country. We had engineering in this country even before, I would say even before the colonial period came in. But it was in the manner that we understood engineering. That we had blacksmiths and all these people. In some context, in some way, they were also engineers. They were working, guided by something that they had learned. Maybe not the scientific principles, but the practices were there. But the formal engineering profession, the first association of engineers, this is by virtue of their education and training, they formed an association called East African Association of Engineers in 1945 as a professional and learned body, which was self-regulating, independent of controlled by government, and it had membership across East Africa, that is, that time Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Fast forward to 1969, we were already now into independence, 6 years into independence. There was a realization there was need to create local capacity. The 1945 association was mainly the majority, or actually could be all of them, were not indigenous citizens. So when the ERB was formed in 1969, was sort of to try and create an environment for the indigenous citizens also to practice as engineers through legislation. We were basically before then working with the British standards and the British system. So if you were to be a civil engineer, for instance, under that East African Association of Engineers, you had to be a member of the Institution of Civil Engineers in the UK. But now with the coming of the ERB in 1969 and later on, having the Institution of Engineers of Kenya come in, we started talking about membership to the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, a local solution, so to speak. So that table really takes you just chronologically. Before 1969, 1969, the enactment of the Act. 1992, an amendment. The 1969 Act was very clear. It was only engineers. 1992, there was a rethinking that we needed to incorporate all persons working with us as engineers. And then there was the incorporation then of graduate technician engineers and technician engineers. Later on, there was a total overhaul of 2011 Act in 2011, and now the enactment of the Engineers Act of 2011, which commenced on 14th September 2012. Now, that is a journey through history. What about the registration of engineers? The first engineers to be registered were basically the members from the East African Organization of Engineers in 1971. And the first meeting was on 3rd June 1971. There's a small issue there. The number is not 132. I think they registered 148. So we started with a seat at 148. And then over the years, there was an increase in number of graduates over the various categories. That illustrates the growth in terms of the numbers over periods. We've bundled them into 5 years. You see, as we are starting off, that is not really the start of. That is around 1980s. Up to 90s, the trajectory was going up. We haven't put the data 69 to 80, but it was going up. So the trajectory was going up to some times in 1980s. These are the professional engineers at that time that were being registered every year over those 5 years. And then you see something strange happening, going down. There's a slump. You may recall that during that time, we were going through very difficult economic times. There was introduction of the structural adjustment programs, and there were no then opportunities for engineers because development projects were curtailed. Government was no longer employing engineers. Engineers who were benefiting a lot from training through government were no longer getting that opportunity anymore until a period around 2000 when we started again picking up. And the trend has been going up, as you can see. Currently, we are talking about annual registration in the regions of 200 engineers. There's a time we could even really struggle to get 60 people registered in a year. In terms of education, we had the first university. That was University of Nairobi, which had its roots from the University College, London. I think it started off as Royal Technical College around 1970s. But later on, we had more university coming in the 80s, and maybe producing the first graduates around the years 90s, early 90s. Later on, we also had JKUAT coming in. But between 2008 and 2018, we've actually had 7 more coming in within a decade. So whereas we had 3 decades, we only had 3 universities offering programs which we were engaging in. Within the last 10 years, we've had a phenomenal increase universities. But we'll be seeing whether this is an opportunity or a challenge or both, and how we look at them. Okay. I pressed off. The bottom line is that we have been growing as a nation in terms of the number of professional engineers. We have also been growing in terms of the institutions that are offering programs. And these are things that we want to see how they are impacting on our development programs. PAS talked about Vision 2030, our key development blueprint. And you all know that the intention is to transform Kenya to a newly industrialized middle-income country and improve the quality of life for our citizens. And when we are talking about Vision 2030, for instance, we talk about the foundations. What are the real enablers of the achievement of Vision 2030? If you go through that, it's very important. You go through that, you realize what contribution engineering has to make in the realization of Vision 2030. The key foundations of Vision 2030 include energy, include infrastructure, include science, technology, and innovation, among other important enablers, including land reform, including political reforms, including security and peace. So we are talking about the place of engineering in the delivery of Vision 2030. You cannot talk about being newly industrialized if you're not attending to the issues to do with energy, you're not talking about the issues to do with infrastructure, and you are not promoting technology and innovation. And that is how integral the profession is. Now, it is not a coincidence that when you are talking about Vision 2030, which was launched in the year 2008, at the same time, you were reviewing the Engineers Registration Act of 1969. Takes me back to what I said, that there was a relook at the entire legal framework, not just engineering, by the way, including other sectors, and rethinking how are we going to achieve this vision if we continue doing the things the same way that we have been doing under, for instance, the Engineers Registration Board. When we talk about the Big Four agenda, the Big Four agenda, we all know, is actually our president's vision towards accelerating the realization of the Big Four, of the Vision 2030. So very critical, picking out what are the key areas that the government prioritizes. The issues of manufacturing. When you talk about manufacturing, relates very well with what we talked about in industrialization. Affordable housing, food and nutrition, universal health care, universal health coverage. Now, where is the place of engineering in all this? Without going into too much details, manufacturing, I don't think I want to emphasize on that. Same case as affordable housing, we really have to be innovative as engineers to give solutions towards having affordable buildings. And I think tomorrow someone will be presenting, the vice president of the institution will be presenting about innovative ways of arriving at affordable housing. Food and nutrition security. We talk about irrigation, we talk about better utilization of land. Land does not expand. How do we maximize on the output on the land that we have? So we talk about having properly trained agricultural engineers who are also doing what they're supposed to do for us to have irrigation systems that are really working. Universal health care, you don't invest in equipment worth billions when you don't have people who are capable and well prepared to run the equipment and to maintain the equipment and eventually also to design equipment that will also assist us in terms of innovation and so on and so forth. That is where we are in terms of our place to push the agenda of the government in the Big Four agenda. Now, we looked at our environment a few years back. We conducted an engineering manpower needs assessment. In other words, we were looking at what are our resources in terms of engineering manpower and what are our needs towards driving the Vision 2030. And we wanted to determine our current skills and manpower, look at the gaps, and then determine what would be the way forward. We did this together with Ernest Young Farm. And in summary, it's a whole report, but the summary was what we have in blue is the supply. What we have in red is the demand. In the short term, it was appearing as if we were having supply that was more or less meeting the demand. There was a balance. But when you look at where we want to go, and this was from the industry and from policymakers, this is what we want to achieve, Vision 2030. We realize we actually will be having a huge gap by the time we're talking about Vision 2030. If we carry on the same, and we're not talking about the professional engineers, we are talking about the entire engineering labor force. We needed to do something urgently to make sure that we have that Vision 2030 well attended to in terms of the manpower available. That is a summary depicting the supply and demand. So, in short, making my presentation very quick, what are we looking at? Engineering challenges and opportunities. I have talked about deficit, talking about 6-7%. Where did we get it wrong? Then we have put in place deliberate mechanisms, especially through our internship programs, to ensure that we give preference to women in engineering and support them through career. Secondly, we have been working with industry to sensitize them on the need to, as they are working their programs, to take into consideration unique requirements that may be needed to have women progress in the industry. I talked about enhanced training, apprenticeship and internship. We are actually having the first cohort of the interns coming in. We are also working with the Public Service Commission to ensure all the internship programs that they have called for under the various ministries are also aligned to the professional requirements of the interns. Not just being a job opportunity, rather being an opportunity for them also to grow in their careers. We keep on learning, carrying out consultancy services, but we are also asking and influencing policy so that institutions that are actually running engineering programs, not in terms of universities, in projects, engineering projects, where we have consultants coming on board, engineering consultants coming on board, we influence policies so that the request for proposals for those consultancy services indicate and incorporate the requirement for training engineers within the industry. So that if a project is a roadworks project going on, they must have interns within those roadwork projects, give them opportunity to learn and stay in the profession. We've had many challenges from the legal framework, and we are looking at it as an opportunity. Constantly reviewing our legal framework. We just rolled out our rules to the Engineers Act 2-3 months ago in line with this approach. where we keep on reviewing our legal framework to ensure that it meets the requirements of the industry. We want to be facilitative in a sustainable manner, in a manner that also projects the engineering profession in this country in the proper manner. We leverage on the constitutional provisions with respect to undertaking, to enhance quality of life. The Constitution, the Constitution is very, very clear and actually sort of obliges the government to offer some of the key basic requirements of having a quality life. For instance, access to water and sanitation and so on and so forth. So we leverage on those constitutional provisions. They are not challenges actually for us now, they are actually opportunities where we say that we are here as engineers and this is what engineers can offer in terms of the solutions. When we're talking about water and sanitation, you can't run away from it. You must put in place mechanisms and systems to ensure that water is treated and people get potable water. When we talk about professionalism, it's in the Constitution. What do we look at? So we are telling government for us now to be working within the confines of the Constitution. Some of these key things must be attended to. Again, within ourselves, talking about fair administrative actions, I talked about the engineers' rules, basically putting everything in order to ensure that the public gets the service that they deserve, the engineers get the service that they deserve, everyone knows their place in society and how things will work out in case we don't work within the confines of the rules. Promotion of code of ethics, again, making sure that we understand what our obligations are under the code of conduct and code of ethics for engineers, very elaborate, but giving us guidelines in terms of the practice. Carrying out consultancies and research, I talked about this. For instance, now we are just about to roll a comprehensive consultancy on the entire regime of engineering training, engineering education, and engineering practice in this country. I don't want to keep you longer than that. I think lunch is ready. So thank you very much for your keen attention.